In the count. The swing arm now coming back as our countdown continues.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Brick Something News weekly on Sundays, roughly 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon Pacific time, sort of. And this time we are joined by a fellow West Coast Bay Area, Michael from Toy Habits. What's going on, Michael?
Gotta represent the yay. Doing well, Brick. This is like a breakend. It's a brick weekend, so I'm excited to hang out with you live yesterday.
Yeah.
Hang out with you virtually last night for a bit, and now today. So it's like it's all coming full circle.
Yeah, it was kind of, it's true. We were hanging out quite a bit. It was us and not just us, right? And because this weekend you and I got to go to the San Jose Super Toy Show that's put on by we didn't talk about this yesterday, but it's actually hosted by Time Tunnel Toys. Have you ever actually checked out the shop?
I haven't yet, no.
It is really cool. That's another reason for us to hang out sometime. I took Kayla there. It's a small shop, but it's very much like the show in that you walk around and it's just filled with like instant nostalgia and a little bit more curated, right? Because they're selling stuff. But
yeah.
Anyway, cool local toy show, and you've been in the past, right?
Yeah, I've been in the past. Yeah, sometimes they host it in Pleasanton, which is not too far away from where I live. And then mainly it's just in San Jose, either at the Santa Clara Convention Center or the fairgrounds, which I've never been to.
The one that you and I went to prior to this, was that technically, that was a Time Tunnel show as well, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I thought so. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's where I found the Mega Battlebone set for $40.
Yeah, you did. It was like we walked around a little, and you zoned in. You're like, oh, what is that?
Search and destroy.
And that was the first time I got to witness this man's instant toy deal radar. It was pretty fascinating.
But I have to admit, the vendors at this toy show were on their game, and we can talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and see who's in the chat. Hi, folks. Happy Sunday. Great to see you all. What's going on, Nolan? Wonderful to see you here today. Aaron Payne's Toy Samples. Is who trying to be Oz? Who, me? I could never be Oz. I do have coffee. So, that's an Oz thing.
It's just an Oz thing.
Well, I know. But greeting children of the revolution. I love it. Hello, Allison. Yes, it ships every time. Let's see who else. Well done. Hello, followers of Marks and Engels. How did we? Yeah, I guess it somehow became a toy revolution. Hey, Carol, good to see you. Let's see. There's this guy. Oh, I love it. Lights, camera. And let's see, Michael Flores, welcome, representing San Jose. What's going on? Cool. Were you at the show, Michael? And if you were, I guess next time when you see us, hopefully we get to see each other. And as we see what's going on today, and there's stuff in there that you want to mention, please definitely chime in. If there's things that we missed, would love to hear it. What's going on, Berserk? Of Fig Bunker fame, always first, regardless of who's here before. Love it. Danny Phillips, good to see you. And hey, Adam Highly Articulated is in fact in the chat. All right. So, folks, if this is your first time here, it's called Brick Something News, but don't let that news fool you, because if you were looking at it closely, it's an acronym. So it stands for that thing at the top, and I've been told, like, hey, Brick Something's making us look up the word ephemera. So needless ephemera, it's basically like BS, random stuff, just stuff out there. So Brick Something news, aka BS news, because we might talk about some news. Not really, not today. We're just going to talk about things that were new to us this week, at least in our brains, something that occupied our brains, something geeky, something toy related, toy adjacent that we just kind of want to talk about. That's what this is about. And at the bottom of the screen, you'll see this sort of annoying little banner, and eventually it'll sort of disappear in your brain. But there is a QR code that is that'll also take you to that URL that's at the bottom. And not right this minute. This one will take a little bit longer than usual because instead of going to a bunch of Instagram links today, we're going to be looking at a lot of photos. So I'll figure that out, but it'll be up there. Everything we've ever looked at here in the Brick Something News is there because I rely on people like Michael and Toy Habits and Toy Sorceress and, Toy Arc and Instagram just to get all sorts of cool toy info. And wouldn't it be nice if it was just sort of all there and the links ready for you to go? And that's the idea. But this is my way of doing it. And there you go. So if you're wondering what that thing is, that's what it is. That said, let's talk about generally what are the things that we saw in the scene. I'll start off. I sort of mentioned this. We weren't alone, right? We were at this show with Geek the F Out, of Geek the F Out fame, Kayla Silva, or Silver K in the chat. Oftentimes, you'll see her everywhere in different streams. You'll see her on Toy Habits, and you'll see her making both Toy Sorceress and Michael blush and laugh, and find excuses to make little naughty jokes every now and then. She brings it out, which is great.
Yeah. And she's been really, I guess, maybe a bad influence in a good way because her sense of humor has creeped into some of my reviews lately, but also in the latest article that I wrote on the Toy Habits website too.
Look for that. Yeah. Find the innuendo. Follow the trail. So yeah, it was great. And this was your first time meeting Kayla, yeah?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yes. Fun fact, actually, 2 years ago, I think, or maybe a little over a year, was one of these first Santa Clara shows that I'd been to, and you and I were supposed to connect that day, and then you weren't able to make it. But simultaneously, I had met Silver K online, and I was like, "Hey, well, you're nearby. Let's go." So technically, we could have all met sooner.
Wow, if you can just go back in time, right?
Right. And then the last show that you and I connected to, unfortunately, she wasn't able to go because she was in Southern California. So finally, the stars aligned, and these 3 YouTube channels got together. We had a good time. Yeah. Like, it was just fun to meet people IRL, and I was a little bit jealous of all the awesome YouTubers that got to connect over at PowerCon a couple months back. So this was our mini version of that. So anyway, let's go ahead and start off. Give folks a sense of the show. It was at the San Jose Fairgrounds at this sort of giant expo hall that they have. And it's just filled with vendors, essentially, right? Everything from comics to vintage toys, some sort of clothing stuff, and some sort of Etsy-ish toy adjacent or just geek adjacent crafts and stuff. And here's a wonderful person who gets to walk out of the bathroom. So this is me just getting there. I was about 15 minutes late. We went to the early bird. So it actually did get a little more crowded than this, but from 9 to 11 was sort of the early bird that you could, pay a little bit more to maybe get in there and find the stuff. We were a little slow. We were doing a lot of talking and a lot of deep digging rather than just sort of seeing what was there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think between you and me in particular, we didn't really have any targets per se, right? We were just sort of seeing what was to be seen.
Yeah, that's how I usually approach these toy shows. I really don't go with something in mind. And if something pops out and grabs my attention, like that mega set, sure. Yeah, there was some other stuff that I'd bought at previous shows that I was just like, I'm taking you home. You got to come home.
Kayla found quite a bit, but I'll let her save that for her channel when she's gonna do a ton of unboxing. So that was that's the overview, and let's talk a little bit about specifics about the kinds of things that we saw on the screen right now. This was I feel like this is a good intro because a lot of it is sort of the vintage stuff that tends to pull me, because this is the stuff I don't get to see every day at Target, right? Or even I don't get to see online in the same way in like the news. Just off the bat, without me sort of going, what is there anything in this picture that sort of resonates with you, or like what just calls you?
I think the $6 million, the Bionic Man definitely does. The Superman does. And yeah, it's funny. The toy show is called Time Tunnel Toys, and it is literally stepping back in time, right? So this is stuff that I think was before my time. And like, that's the great part about going to this show, is that there's so much that you get exposed to that you would never think of buying or even liking, and it's really just taking a trip back in memory lane.
Yeah. I love it. We got 1/6 shooter in the house, letting me know about the production value, because he saw me earlier on the stream. Because what happened was my lighting went out midstream. I'm sure you probably figured it out. And so now everything's back on. Yeah, just, you know, we'll see how long it lasted and get to charge. Like, and Nolan asks, is that the Big Jim Tiger? I'm not sure. It might have been in the video, if that's what you're referring to, but I did see it
there
twice,
is a tiger,
actually.
But it's between Superman and
oh, this little one.
Yeah.
I don't think. Oh wait, it
is that Battle Cat?
Yeah, no, it is. So that is essentially the Big Jim Tiger. So I remember seeing it. There were two different places that I remember seeing it. But so yeah, the part of why I showed this, I didn't realize there was that MOTU connection. But to sort of start us off today, so much of these vintage toys were the predecessors, or the sort of starting points of toys that later you and I, children of the 80s, sort of like glommed onto. So yes, good eye, Nolan. So this is the tiger that eventually got reused for the initial Battle Cat. Like, scale be damned, right? They're just like, hey, we like, can we put another toy in there? Or I think the original was they were going to make a steed, and then they sort of budget time, and they're like, no, just don't we have something else? Well, we got this other tiger, but it's not going to work because it's out of scale, right? Yeah. That's the Big Jim Tiger, and that'll actually kind of come up quite a bit. So, $1 Million Man, which I think is hilarious, because remember this. Well, first off, the figure. This is what you never do if you're in a band. Never wear your own band t-shirt. But he's got his jumpsuit with his logo on it, which is like funny, because you and I were both wearing. You were wearing a toy shirt, and I had my little So, anyways, I guess we were following the Steve. Ooh, Steve. Was it Steve Trevor? I think it was Steve Trevor. Sorry, I paused there for a second because I was going to go Steve Rogers. But that's not right.
Oh,
and then Trevor's, yeah, and then Trevor's in the chat, but I'm pretty sure it is Steve Trevor, but I might be wrong. Anyways, he's wearing his own merch. But there you see the behind him the 12-inch vintage Boba Fett, which was hot as a kid. You've got Star Trek line. You've got Mego Superman, or a Mego Superman, not the smaller Mego Superman. There's just all this stuff that eventually does inform it. And who's this guy down here? Oh, hey. Yeah, so G.I. Joe, right? Yeah. And then, of course, Planet of the Apes here for you all. You're all seeing it. But this was what it was, right? All sorts of really cool vintage stuff that, for me, always kind of takes me back when I go to these toy shows and reminds me of stuff. So that person laying down was sort of an older G.I. Joe, right? The G.I. Joe of the 60s that got transformed into this because of the oil crisis and other reasons to here. Now, this is a photo that you took. Was it because of the Sky Striker?
Yeah, it was because of the Sky Striker, and also Optimus Prime is there. But I saw the Sky Striker was pretty much the same price as the G.I. Joe HasLab after shipping. And so it's like, we'd just rather have that, right?
Yep. Yeah. It's so funny. It's true. Oh, sorry. It was Steve Austin. Steve Trevor is Wonder Woman's boyfriend. Thank you, Allison.
It's all connected.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tricky because you could be a vintage collector, and those toys were great. And if you're chasing those, especially one like this that's in the box, this is the fun thing about these sort of toy shows. You get to see all these things, and then you get to see what they're charging, right?
Yeah. Oh, geez.
$250. So anyway, yeah, I do wonder what is the better choice here, and I don't think there's a wrong choice if you're kind of going back, trying to fill in a
what the right
collection.
choice is? Both. Right.
Yes, if you're of means, go for it. If you're not, maybe not the right choice. We'll come back to this guy, but so good. On the G.I. Joe tip, this was another shot that you took. So tell me about like your history with Joes. Would you say this was like your main line, wearing your Cobra Enemy t-shirt from Super 7?
Yes, it was the main line. I think I had the most G.I. Joe action figures, and I think it's special to me because I have like vivid memories of just having these like all out battles between Cobra and Joe in the family room. And so I would set up these elaborate battles. And so I would get all of the Cobra set up, I get all the Joes, and then I'd have like a specific sequence, right? And so like the missile from the Cobra bunker would just, lob the first opening salvo into the Joe and explode one of the vehicles, and then all heck breaks loose.
Oh, so fun. Just the way you describe that. Totally remember that. That vibe, right? Of just like we're playing and we're creating this world. Oops. Before we get there, just what I also like about this, I talked about that price tag, right? Of that, what the people are charging. What you can also do sometimes is see what people were charging back in the day. And that came up a couple of times as we were, going around. And then, you get totally sucked back at there was Montgomery Wards, right? Old Target stuff. There's so much of these toys that brings us back to that childhood moment, like in Ratatouille, where he eats the ratatouille and he goes, I often get that. Like yesterday, I kept saying like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. Part of it was just there's a lot to look at, but part of it is just like, oh, I remember that. And I remember that. And I don't know. I love it. I don't know about you, as much as I would love to buy these things. I find that in my old age, I don't need to. I just need to go to these things and kind of relive them and see them. And, but having them would be nice too.
That's a good point, because we were talking about like the completist in me and not in you. And so I think this is, maybe I should go to more of these so I don't have to like buy everything. But yeah, it's a struggle. And I guess that's probably partly why the show is called Toy Habits too, because it's good habits. That's right. And bad habits, right?
It's totally true. And this is a real habit. Did you just catch that?
Yes. What is up, partner? Hope you're feeling better, and glad you popped into the chat.
What's going on, sir? What's going on, Toy Sorceress? Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so happy that you all are like you connected, particularly with the website and then now on the channel. So we'll definitely get to that, especially for those who are familiar with the show. Today's a little different because we're kind of talking about stuff that me and the co-host got to do really recently. But then we'll have time to talk a little bit more about the co-host later too. This stuff, that's what. So we had shelves as in our room, and then at one point when my brother moved out, I moved into a different room, and I had a closet filled with this, and it looked just like that, right on the shelves, just like organized kind of side by side, so I can quickly see them and grab the ones I wanted to pull out and play with. Were there any of these that that you have a fond memory or connection to?
I do, and this will give some context as to why we have the Toy Habits hot tub. So I do see a water moccasin in there, and so that also made its a grand reveal in the hot tub that I grew up in the backyard, the house that I had growing up as a kid. And
literally a hot tub.
Yes, it was. So it was literally a hot tub. And for the folks that are on the attic level in Discord, I did show myself with all of my, like, some of the GI Joes. Like, it was basically 10-year-old Michael in the hot tub. Like, you could like pick out the GI Joes in there, but this one was great. I love that vehicle, and like the figure Copperhead was awesome too. So yeah, that one has a special place in my heart. And yeah, it's basically why the Toy Habits hot tub, it's called the hot tub. It's because we also played in there and hung out with friends and stuff.
This is a little sad with what's going on up here. But I'm with you. Like, this was definitely a favorite of mine. There was something about the shape that felt very like spacey. So sometimes they even kind of became a spaceship in my play. But yeah, the figure, sorry, what was his name? Copperhead was cool too. Like, it was this, you know, it was almost like Masters of the Universe, right? Like, almost half skin revealed, but he's got this cool science fiction helmet. So I in my brain, like, there was all sorts of things happening. It wasn't always just GI Joe, and like the little action features of spinning that thing was just so kinetic, and like, I don't know, that stuff really imprints for me. We were playing with this yesterday. The toss and cross,
and that is
the toss and cross. It's just so, and even back then I was like, this is silly, because it was like, it was meant to like hit maybe a ravine or a river or something, and that way we can get things away, get things over and get the troops over. But there was no real, so that thing would fold out and you'd lay the bridge, but there was no way to disconnect it. So somehow the other vehicles had to get around. It was just weird, but in concept, I don't know why, I was just into it. And it came with dude with a hard hat, which was awesome. Toll booth, right, with a giant sledgehammer, right? That was his weapon.
That did a lot of damage in the battles too.
Between him, Wild Bill, Spirit, who else? You could get yourself a whole little GI Joe Village People going on.
Oh my gosh!
Get Shipwreck in there.
Young man.
Yeah. Anyway, GI Joe was great. Even like, you know, here, $50 for this thing. You know what? I didn't even think to ask, but I'm curious if wait, this was this could move, right? And it's battery operated.
Yeah, it was motorized.
Right.
Yeah,
this and the tank
battery or something like that.
Yeah, I wonder. I didn't even think to ask if that was so functional, but man, this was a great toy line. I think this sums up like my childhood too. Between this and Kenner Star Wars, it's something that we don't see a lot of these days, where we get the whole world. Like, we get the vehicles, we get the characters, the figures, we get the play set. So it's no wonder that, like, however many decades later, people are still clamoring for this stuff, and you and I are sitting here on the internet with other people geeking over pictures of it. So
you mentioned something earlier just about like the getting to manipulate the toys and like hearing the sounds, and you know, I thought like the sounds that toys make are very different from yesteryear than today, but there's a couple things that I like, at least the Joe team right now, that are doing with some of the HasLabs, like with the His Tank making lights and just more effects in these things. So I dig that. But
yeah, the Dragonfly, right, has got some really, really cool lights, and there's sounds as well. No, I'm making that up. No sounds. Just lights.
You supply the sounds.
Yeah, I mean, it really wouldn't take much. I said this about Snake Mountain too. Like, do we need a microphone? Given the technology, I just sort of feel like if you get a little Bluetooth speaker built in or something, like, and then you make them download an app, you could do so much more.
Yeah.
Right? Think about it, you could add really cool sounds as long as they come from inside the thing. Anyway, just
that was a missed opportunity, right?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these, right? And then people are saying the same thing, right? Like Toy Sorcerers. I remember playing with the Cobra Adder and Stun at the park. Yeah, like, you know, it definitely brings people back. Had that sub, but mine was green, yellow, and black. That's the oh, what was that thing called? Yeah, I saw that here yesterday. I didn't even know it came in this colorway.
Where is it?
Oh wait, maybe it's not here. What was the name of that? Oh, maybe it's a
Oh, the
different
shark.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
shark. There
Okay.
was
Yeah.
a different colored shark that I saw yesterday. I was like, oh, I didn't even realize they had redone it.
Oh yeah, they've redone it a couple times. There's a Night Force version which is black, and then I think they did a Tiger Force version too, which is yellow and black.
And that thing was just cool. It was like underwater, fly, and that figure was so unique, right? Because he had the giant suit. What was his name? The
Deep Six.
pilot of that Deep Six. Like he had the full on, a completely unique buck for that time period.
Yeah, he also had a little gimmick too. I guess there's a plunger that you can attach with a hose to his back too, and I guess if you plunge it, I think he either goes down or goes up, and
we did that in the pool.
Yeah, that dive.
Yeah. Michael Flores is asking, were there any 112 diorama or accessories sellers there? Not that I saw. There were definitely accessories available for specific figure lines that have them. Like there were some Mythic Legions and Cosmic Legions folks who had like Hands Pack, and but not a ton. And Dios specifically, no. But
yeah, and I forget. Like I probably should know this, but is the 112 scale? Is that the 12? Is that the 12-inch scale or the 6-inch?
It's like 6-inch.
Okay,
6-inch.
Yeah, we did see a diorama, I think, from NECA there, but that was, I think, the only thing that I'd seen.
Which was it?
I don't remember. I think it was, well, actually, here, let me see if I can recall. It was maybe like a street scene or I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, not that I remember, but I am getting old. The other sort of like for me, there was G.I. Joe and then there was Star Wars. Star Wars was first, right? I was born in 76. By the time my brain could sort of process things, Star Wars had come out, and my brother, who's 5 years older, had bullied and cajoled my parents to ordering, you know, some of the first ones, right? Yep. And he was one of those who got the early bird kit. And so by the time I was conscious, like, oh, these toys were just things. And so there was that. And then, of course, this gun in particular. I remember the sound, the sort of yellow and black thing happening here. Yeah, all of this was just so, it's like part of my, I don't know, I was gonna say it's not part of my DNA, but somehow it's got like infused into my DNA, you know?
Yeah. Somehow Dr. Mindbender did that surgery and infused that. But I don't know if I was just trying to pull one over on my parents or just plotting and scheming, but I think I was 5, maybe 5 or 6, and I would see these commercials for, like, you know, Darth Vader is appearing at this grand opening at Toys R Us, and so I would ask my dad. I was like, "Hey, let's go see Darth Vader at Toys R Us." But the 5 and 6-year-old me didn't get that it was different stores that were having the grand opening, and so I would basically take him back to the same store, and he'd be like, "Where's Darth Vader?" But because he wasn't home during the day because he was at work, so he didn't see these commercials. He was just relying on me, and so I would take him back to the same Toys R Us over and over and over again, and nobody would be there.
Yep. Yeah. That's funny. The whole idea of like the appearance, the character is going to be there. I did that as well. I got to see He-Man and Skeletor back in the day and was so disappointed though, because He-Man was literally like in a full body suit with like a mask and fake muscles. Because in my brain, I was expecting like big buff dude and maybe a big buff blue guy, but with a mask, but it wasn't that. And they had these kind of cheesy things. And then later there was another one that I'll bring up again.
It's kind of traumatizing too.
A little bit. There's all sorts of stuff here. And I'm going to stop every now and then like this.
Yeah.
I had those, like you put in these little cartridges and you could see little snippets of a cartoon or a movie. And because remember, kids, we once a movie came out or a TV show came out, until we had like VHS, we never knew if we'd ever see it again. So we'd be looking at books or Viewmasters or that thing. Anyway, the Star Wars deal, right? Obviously, it kind of never went away. You and I were on a stream Friday night talking about the latest Disney Plus TV show, Ahsoka.
Yeah. Oh, so good.
So it's like there's this kind of stuff at this show, and then there's newer stuff. This thing caught both of our attention. I was standing there and I was like, wow, I kind of want this. Be great representation of this thing. And then I asked how much it was, and I said, oh, I guess I don't want this. But it's a beautiful toy. The Forces of Destiny, I remember seeing these, but like I wasn't actually actively buying toys at the time. I was really into Star Wars. So in my brain, I was like, no, I'm just going to stick to the books. So I was collecting all the art of books and the visual dictionaries that were coming out. But man, I really do regret this because it's such a cool mix of the sort of quote unquote doll type figure.
Yeah.
With an action figure like sculpt. So like that face is definitely of what you would associate with more like a Barbie kind of thing. But the way they did the Leku, no, Montrolls, sorry, that was speciesist. Allow me, push up my glasses. The Leku are for the Twi'leks. The Montrolls are for the, I just put myself in another corner because I don't remember what she is. Racist.
You're just throwing it all out here.
But that allows for the wonderful nerds in the chat to jump in and show off their knowledge.
That's what I love about the community. If you have like a mind blank, and it happens on these things, right? It's like you're live, you're trying to call up information that could be 5 or 6, 10 years, 30 years old, and sometimes it just doesn't get there. The synapses don't fire.
And last night on a stream, we found out that Allison actually has this and got such a great deal on it. And so good for you, because it really is a really cool. No, that was actually meant sincerely. I swear. That it's so cool. The outfit's cool. Yeah, I love this kind of thing, and I love that it's around. And I hope that, because it's definitely geared more to what the toy industry continues to call like girl toys, right? And I just hope that young women were able to like grab this, and I don't know, just like I was able to play with my 12-inch Boba Fett and Darth Vader and Princess Leia. That stuff was cool because in a kid's hand, that's like a, I don't know, like what we now are enjoying in 112, right? It feels huge. Let's see. This is how I roll, by the way. We're just kind of looking at stuff, talking, bring up some stuff every now and then. My buddy a few years ago had an original Star Wars Han Solo still in its original blister mint until his nephew wanted something to play with and his grandmother found it. Oof. I hope that kid enjoyed it, and I hope that kid is now a Star Wars fan, because otherwise that is a little bit of a crime. Oh, nice. So Adam has these. If you have them, and when you say a bunch of these, I don't know if you mean like other characters. If you happen to have an extra Ahsoka, Uncle Brick might hit you up. So this is going back to the whole in-store appearance thing. I'm really curious, Toy Sorcerer. She says, I met Ponch and John and took a photo on their motorcycle.
No way.
So, she grew up in Southern California. Is that right? So there's entirely a possibility where she might have met the actual Ponch and John in LA. Chips that's from Chips, by the way, for the kids. Just so you know, Chips stands for California Highway Patrol, when it really truly was like fun propaganda about our highway patrol officers. Don't get me started on SWAT. Anyways, they're great. Back to this figure, but the girls lost a bunch of the small pieces. Yeah. Thank you, Allison. Pushing up my glasses for you. She is a Togruta. Sorry for the disrespect, Ahsoka. No rooted hair brick, Ahsoka. There is there's an action figure. I love it, Eric. Like this idea of the rules, right? No rooted hair. That's a figure. Rooted hair, doll. You know what? Yeah, I've just kind of I get it, toy industry stuff. But I played with everything. What's going on? Good to see you. I'm assuming that's Carlos, but or maybe Jorge. One or the other. Good to see you. There you go. See, jumping in. There you go. Let's get our nerds in there. All right. So, and actually there was one more over in the UK. Danny got to meet He-Man and She-Ra and Glimmer and Skeleton at Hamley's when he was 3.
Oh, that's awesome.
Please tell us, Danny, if they were in weird rubber suits or they actually just allowed because I hope Glimmer was just like a woman in a costume rather than a woman with a Glimmer suit and a Glimmer face mask. That was weird. Like wearing skin suits. Anyway, Star Wars. I wanted to bring this up because, like, man, we've come a long way from the stuff that you and I played with in the 70s and 80s to this came out early 2000, probably 17, 18 or so when Forces of Destiny was running. And Star Wars just never went away. And in many ways, Star Wars paved the way. So this next picture, sorry, Rick, because Rick earlier asked a question about an R2-D2, asking if you and I got to see the giant remote control R2-D2. And I'll bring that up in a second. But yes, we did. Michael was able to upload the Death Star plans as well as record a quick hologram message to Obi-Wan Kenobi. And send them off. Dude, tell folks about this thing. This thing's wild.
That was fun. So yeah, there was a guy there who built this thing from scratch, and all he did was just follow it around, just controlling the sounds and the lights and the movement. And I thought it was fun because at random times you would hear the R2-D2 like screech or squeal. Yeah, that one. But man, the people who do this are really, really talented. Like it looks like it came from the movie.
Yeah, you look up close at it. It's just it really is. It's the same stuff that they were doing back in the day to build these things, except you didn't have to shove a person inside. This is full on remote control. There's cool stuff that was happening that Kenny Baker was able to do with that sort of shaking and stuff that definitely gave it a life, and a personality. But still, to think like he was just walking around with his little RC controller and just following it, and you'd see little kids going up to it, big kids like Michael here, going up to it and just enjoying it. Man, it was fantastic. And yes, I 100% agree. And those of you who may know, I am a musician, a bass player, and the SWAT theme was a regular warm-up song, as well as Sanford and Son, and some other great and Chips. Yeah, totally.
Break it down, Brick.
Yeah. And your partner there is loving that photo. Yes.
She was there in spirit, though, by the way, because I did see I think this was a right out of the package, mint condition, nothing wrong with it, toy sorceress. So I think she was there with us.
Yep. And so on that note, let's go back to the roots of Masters of the Universe, because there's a lot going on here. Obviously, there's some G.I. Joe. There's some Star Trek, Mego Star Trek. Over here, I'm forgetting which line, but it was a Mattel line. He was a villain to, was he a Big Jim villain? I want to say. And a lot of those villains ended up becoming sort of the inspirations for Masters of the Universe villains. On that note, down here, if you can see, it's Mattel's Man in Space, Major Matt Mason. And so Major Matt Mason was this Mattel character. I love the alliteration. Mattel's Man in Space, Major Matt Mason. Mercy. So it's like these, this astronaut and his friends, and they were in multicolored, so red, yellow, green, white spacesuits, and they went off on space adventures and dealt with. I'm totally Yeah, they ended up, having adventures in space because at the time space was all the rage. Come on now. Hold on, rewind. Ugh. And anyway, Major Matt Mason inspired like a lot of those toy lines. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with a lot of the like the documentaries that we're seeing, like the Toys That Made Us.
Yeah.
You watched a lot of, okay. So in those, and then also over on Scott Knightlick's channel, he was doing a whole lot with sort of like sharing the history of Masters of the Universe in particular. And there's a reason that I'm saying this because, oh no, hold on a second. I'm having some issues because it looks like, hold on, let me close this. Maybe if I close a couple of things, I can just get a little bit more memory. Maybe not.
I love tech issues.
I know, like what I'm actually afraid of is that I have all of these pictures lined up already. Let's see if I do that. Ooh, that looks cool.
Oh my gosh, that's really cool. That's like out of Interstellar or something.
Yeah. Pause.
Do you have like
no? Here, I'm gonna make myself sad right now and turn that off. But anyway, are you familiar at all with the Major Matt Mason thing or not?
I am not, no.
Okay. So with Major Matt Mason and the connection to Masters of the Universe. So they are these four. Oh, I'm going to do it. Sorry, I'm going to quit out and it's going to slow us down a little bit, but that's okay. Major Matt Mason and his friends go on space adventures, and they're each have a name, and I'm forgetting the names off the bat. But again, to credit to, I learned this actually from Toy Guru's channel on YouTube, where he was sort of like going over all of the different history of the different classics figures.
Mm-hmm.
And so he highlighted that Mattel would never throw out old ideas. And so just like using Big Jim, what they did is the last names of these characters included a connection to Evil Lynn, to Trapjaw.
Oh, wow.
And that part of perhaps the history was that in one version was that they were travelers from Earth that somehow got transformed or mutated or something into the villains. And I might totally be butchering that. And Allison's in the chat, and so she will totally break it down for us. Here you go. So Major Mason was in the original Filmation Bible as one of Marlena Glenn's co-astronauts. Yes. So that's where I was going. The reason why Marlena's in a green astronaut outfit is that the idea is that she was with them, right? She was with that original team, and somehow she landed on Eternia, as we know. And so there's this DNA, this lineage. And when you look at sort of like the designs of these alien creatures, you can kind of get like, oh, okay, no, I see where they're pulling some of these ideas of these creatures, these otherworldly beings with cool action features. And man, I love that kind of stuff. I totally geek out on this new culture where we're seeing, people just sharing all of this sort of like nice history of toys. And, I geek out on that. So I don't know.
As you should. Like,
yes.
I think this is the first time I'm seeing a lot of this stuff. And I was like, where was I when this stuff was coming out? It might have been before my time, probably.
So Allison's saying Evil Lynn, Triclops, and Beastman. Thank you. We're three of them with Glenn and Mason. The three villains were transformed into the villains. Marlena had to marry a man and have babies. Matt Mason, who knows, right? Oh, I see. So potentially that I hear what you're saying. Maybe that's the secret father of He-Man. No, but yeah, it's cool stuff, and I love that history and how they kind of like get their sort of ideas that eventually become these toy lines, because it really is just a bunch of people coming around and being like, hey, what if we made this toy line? And what if so anyway, to pick it up a little bit, you were saying?
She is.
Yeah. This is the figure that you saw. Did you happen to ask how much they were charging for these things?
I did not know, because I have this one. The Toy Sorceress obviously has this one because it's her avatar.
Yep.
But these can be a pretty penny. I think I'd probably say between 150 and 200, most likely for this one.
Yeah.
Toy Sorceress, she's so minty. She minty fresh, yo.
Then we found these. Right. Speaking of minty fresh, we saw a bunch of great, not quite minty, but at least inside they are, because they were unopened. The inside, these things are minty. So we've got like an assortment. And I remember, speaking of Alice and Troy, you, me, and Kayla saying, yeah, we got to take this picture for Allison.
Yeah, we do.
Did you have much pop in your life, Princess of Power in your life, or?
No, because I think I was maybe coming out of collecting He-Man by the time that came out. But I actually love the Princess of Power Filmation cartoon so much better than the He-Man cartoon, actually. So
yeah, and there's a reason for it, because it's better.
It is.
Sorry. Yeah, no, for sure. I think the writing was greater. Like I felt like sometimes the stakes were anyway, I enjoyed it. And if you over here, we actually asked the poor guy, hey, can you hold this up for a picture? He's really nice about it. We were talking about it, but right under his nose, and he didn't even notice this, but I pointed it out to him, was a Toys R Us sticker. This thing had a $14.95 price tag on it. And that was not, that was definitely not the price. That must have been a reduced price, like a clearance price or something. But still, that's pretty damn amazing.
Yeah, unopened, still sealed. And it looks like it just came out of that year. There's really nothing wrong with that box.
Yep. So anyway, they were like, Mattel produced some great things like this. They also produced some great things like this. This is like, it's almost like required that whenever I go to one of these toy shows, I sort of like make a pilgrimage or a beeline, and I actually have pictures of every single Shogun Warrior that I see, because I grew up in a home where my older brother, once again, was able to secure these. And I think, I mentioned to you that my mom actually worked the line. So Mattel was in El Segundo, and they had spaces there where they were like assembly, basically. And some of the toys that we ended up with were because mom had a discount. And so my brother, he got the Shogun Warriors as a kid. I got to see them as a little guy. I don't know what ended up happening to them. But we had this guy, Mazinger. We had Rodan. We had who technically was not part of the Shogun Warriors. Yes, I know. We had who else? Raideen. So yeah, I love these, and these are going for a lot of money, especially if they have sort of all the missiles and all the parts, like this little ship on the top of his head. The stickers on this one are gorgeous on the stomach and everything. Anyways, I can't walk by one of these without snapping a picture and just sort of, I don't know, it's the closest thing I have to kind of a religious experience, I guess. Sorry, that's not to make light of those folks, but genuinely for me, that's a thing.
Yeah, that's why we go to these shows. And was this more expensive or less expensive than that Crystal Castle in box unopened?
Oh, this was more expensive. The person definitely knew what they had, because again, you'll see here there are blades here on the side. The fist is still there because these things launched back in the day. We built things that would shoot you and get you, make you blind.
This was more than that Crystal Castle?
Oh, yeah. Okay. And so this had the 3 missiles and this one. Now, these were not, because they're not complete. This is the one that got away. We didn't have them. But here, you see the price tag. and these are incomplete. They had some, so you can see here, there's a piece missing. This has the ship, but is missing these. So, but you know, I don't know, man. I just love toys, and part of the reason is because of this. And I'm just thinking about this, you know, a lot of people talk about shelf killers and sort of big items, and like wonder, like, dude, why are you getting these things? Just stick to the figures. I think part of it's because of this. Like, I grew up with like there was a variety of toys and shapes and sizes. If you think about like those GI Joes we were looking at from the 80s, you had the figures, but you also had that, and then you had the GI Joe base and the Terradrome, like
Terradrome.
So anyway, yeah. So were these not something that you were on your radar, or?
No, I mean, I heard about them from friends, but I don't think I've ever seen these at all. Like, so this is what I love. It's like I don't know like everything and like everything about toys in general, and so I love learning about things I don't know.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I think that's the attitude, man. I wish more folks had the attitude, because because sometimes people are like, oh, we don't need this, like, don't support that, and just like, man, toys are great.
I mean, it's like, even if I don't like it or want to buy it, I could still like appreciate the design, the aesthetic, and also just the functionality that's missing from a lot of toys these days, right? Because
absolutely,
those things did a bunch of really cool things.
What I love is when even nowadays, so this is like a new toy of something that we didn't have toys of as a kid. Thunder the Barbarian, a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, a lot of the designs and everything done by Jack Kirby. And you see it, right? And you see sort of it in the designs and everything, but these characters are also very much riffing off of Star Wars, which was huge at the time, but mixing it with this thing called Conan the Barbarian, right? The whole sword and sorcery thing. And they're like, well, what if we had like a Conan who happens to have a light sword, aka called the Sun Sword? And what if he had a buddy that didn't talk? It was kind of like a giant animal who would growl, Chewbacca, right? And there was a princess with them, Princess Ariel, right? So it was very much like riffing on these archetypes that were big at the time. But I say that, and that hopefully triggers something in people's brains, because it should remind you of like, this is a precursor to He-Man.
Yeah.
Right? The whole sword, sorcery, barbarian mixed in with the sci-fi and the aliens and the creatures. So this was something that we didn't have toys of as a kid, but they eventually sort of came out in by Toynami in I think the 2000s. So I don't know. I love this. Were you a Thundar person? Did that feed into your MOTU love at all, or?
No, I guess Masters fed into my MOTU love. There was nothing like that preceded it. When I went to the toy store, just saw the cartoon, I was just immediately like, it captured you and just sucked you in.
Yeah, no, it really did. Well, it had precursors, and so how about this? You took pictures of this, and this is Kiss, and you can see what's going on here. These were 12-inch Kiss dolls. Why'd you take pictures of these? And was this something that you were into, or?
No, so I'm only into taking pictures of like rock star kind of toys because my older brother, who is responsible for making the Toy Habits jingle, he's a musician. He also has a YouTube channel called The Music Shed. I found these Spinal Tap figures that were 12-inch at the Alameda Point Antique Fair. I took a picture of them, and he's like, I want them. But the figures were maybe like $50 to $75 each, and this Kiss set was a little bit out of the price range, but he likes to put stuff in a studio. He's got, oh my gosh, he's got a lava lamp collection. He's got figures that I've sent to him. Like, I think I sent him a whole like Yellow Submarine Beatles scene.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So those figures. And so when I come across these, I like to take pictures of them and send it to him, but I don't think I sent these to him because I actually thought that sticker said like $49. And I don't know the price of these. And I was like, okay, if it's $50, he'll probably want it and I'll buy it for him. But as I found out, they were $495.
Yeah, I don't know how legit that price is, because you never know. But it surprised me, and I know that Ace Frehley was my brother's like toy for the longest time, and ended up in my mom's sort of doll collection. My brother was a huge Kiss fan. He's 5 years older than I am, and I see it, man. Like there is no other band except Alice Cooper, I guess, but these guys had like a full-on sci-fi backstory mixed with, it's very, again, Masters of the Universe, right? So space Ace, right? The sort of like from the stars. There's the demon, right? There's even a Thundercats kind of deal going. Like they just had a bunch of stuff. Like I remember they did a Marvel comic, right, where they had powers and like so. Again, all this stuff, this was the stuff of our childhoods that I think then gets transformed and sort of like recycled almost into new properties. And going to toy shows like this is always kind of just fun to kind of relive that stuff.
Like the rooted hair is genius for it, for this type of figure, right?
Yep. Oh, poor Peter Chris. He's so sad. Yeah. And McFarlane did do McFarlane Kiss stuff back in the day, and there was the whole like they even did like a what do you call it, they did like a newer property where they were really trying to bring it back and sell toys, and I remember that. Kiss was like all about this, absolutely, Ed, like it was all about merchandising their name, story, and look. They were like, yeah, that Star Wars things makes sense, can we just sell a bunch of stuff? And they'll go after you, like they will go after you if you do anything sort of Kiss related.
Yeah. And that was smart of them, because I've seen so many rockumentaries where you have like the group Wham. They meet this agent who wants to sign a contract. They don't, they're what, 18 years old at the time.
Yep.
And they know that they need this record deal to make it, and they just agree to whatever. And it's like they're bound by that contract, right?
Yep.
It's crazy. So I commend Kiss for trying to figure out how to actually make money being a rock star.
Fair enough. Yeah, and they definitely made a lot of money, and they still are. They're not getting this piece of stuff unless they hoarded these and are now selling them mint in box, which would be another smart thing to do.
Yeah.
But Allison lets us know that mint in box, these Kiss dolls usually go for $1,200 to $4,000 depending on the condition.
Maybe this was a good price then, huh?
Well, yeah, and she says these are about 300-ish on condition based on the current market. So yeah, oops. And Star said McFarlane's Kiss Love Gun album cover figs looked amazing, but they're essentially like, glorified statues. You can actually get a real Kiss coffin. They're like, if you love us that much, when you die, here you go.
Wow.
Motley Crue could work in figure form, absolutely, and they are coming from Super 7 in some form, right? Definitely Reaction, and depending on how they sell, they usually sort of become the staging area or the precursor to Ultimates figures. So anyway, I'm looking at the time, so we'll definitely kind of move along. Here we go. Here we go. Am I stuck here again? Okay, here we go. No, I know it's going. It was a memory issue. I can't. No self-respecting Brick Something video talking about vintage toys could somehow get away with not talking about Micronauts. This, Michael, this was my jam, and it wasn't of my era. Like this was older than us, but I think we had uncles or something. I still to this day, my brother and I are not sure how we ended up with so many Micronauts toys. But we had a version of, we had this, but like some pieces were missing in a box. And the nice thing about Micronauts is it was Lego and action figure form. There was a system of this simple peg, and you can take parts apart and put them together, as it says here, 8 different toys in one. And you can even make different space vehicles at one time.
I need this.
So you can, and you can see these here, and it's battery operated. There's all sorts of movement. There's a cool motor. I was all about it. You press this button and this guy would fall into there. Like, just really cool stuff. But you can see here $249 in box. It's cool stuff.
Yeah.
Some of them, it's Mythic Legions, right? Mythic Legions with a pop and swap. MOTU Origins with a pop and swap came from, I don't know if it came from, but was definitely reminds us of this line. I love this.
That in my life right now, I think.
It's remote controlled.
Jeez, so cool.
With a wire, but it was remote controlled. Anyway, I love Micronauts. I'm still waiting for, like, this is one of those properties that Hasbro has the IP for, that they're just sort of like,
are they just sitting on it? Like, they are masked.
So anyway,
sucks.
Chewy. Last of the sort of vintage goodness, we saw these Buck Rogers things. These 3.75. I had a really beat up Buck Rogers figure, this guy, and a Twiki that eventually got mixed in with my Star Wars first, and then GI Joe. But these were cool looking ships. I want to say the production design was, if not done by Sid Mead, maybe inspired by Concepts or something. I'm pretty sure they were done by Sid Mead. Good stuff, like just cool shapes, and it was neat to see something. I've never even seen these in box. So these toy shows are always just a great opportunity if you're looking for this stuff, or even just want to gawk and be that annoying person, because I know they want to sell this stuff, but I was pointing out to you yesterday, like, Buck Rogers can't be in a ship without announcing that he in fact is Buck Rogers with a trademark. This is my ship. And yeah.
It's like a personalized license plate, right?
Sure. Yes.
But it's on the front.
All right. So a little bit more modern, Exo Squad, and this is just sort of a quick transition to this. When Playmates got this license, they also got licensed to some of the Robotech toys, and they kind of tried to bring those in. But I'll just say that they weren't anything like this thing. And I know you stopped on this thing.
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
So I think the first time that I was introduced to Robotech S figures was that Jetfire that came out in '85. And so that's, I think, one of my all-time favorite Transformers figures. And I am not a Transformers guy, but I still have that Jetfire. I do have a subset of G1 Transformers just because they meant a lot to me when I was little, and this totally reminded me of Jetfire. And it's massive, and its paint app is really, really done very well on this thing.
Yep. Like you said, this was Jetfire, right? That it was one of the rare things that somehow somebody else got to license, that Robotech didn't sort of like tie and say, no, it's Robotech, nothing Macross. But and to this day they can't go back, right? They can't use it because of this because of this sort of tie. Yeah, I mean, there's so many great designs. There's so many shots of this thing. It's a giant statue, but you can sort of see there's the light up thing. I don't believe that. Well, I'm not even going to speak too much on it because I didn't ask a whole lot of questions. We just snapped pictures and kind of moved on. But there are all sorts of great things, like Stars asking if anyone had the Battlestar Galactica ships from the 70s. My brother and I did not, but my uncle did. So we played with those things. Those are one of those that had missiles that they eventually had to recall, or like the new versions had missiles that would shoot out but never launch because a kid supposedly had choked on it. Stupid kids ruining it for the rest of us.
I know, right? Jeez, that's sad though.
Yeah, no, you totally shouldn't pre-order the 3-0 Valkyrie at all, because I mean, why would you need anything like this? And sorry, Star. No, Star, stay the course. AWOC and Cosmic Legion, stay the course. Stay the course. You're good. You can do it. All right. So this is again like a little bit different episode today because I got to kick it with a homie this week, right? And we got to do things together and talk, and I got to know you a lot more. I loved it. That was super fun. So the last section of the show is always That's What's Up, a little bit more of a feature. And I actually kind of want to turn the tables a little bit and talk a little bit about you and what you do. What is this Toy Habits thing all about?
Geez. Yeah, so this Toy Habits thing started as a YouTube channel. I think pretty much like everyone got started in April of 2021. And I think I just found myself thinking about toys like all the time. And so it's like, okay, I've always wanted to see what this whole YouTube thing was about. And so I created a channel. And then at the time that I created it, I had a partner, Larry, because we would, be chatting back and forth about toys. And so we were like, okay, we're talking about toys. Why don't we just start something and just see how it goes? And so, so we started in April of 2021, and it was basically a weekly show, just kind of like you and I are chit-chatting about the stuff that we loved. It was very Masters of the Universe and G.I. Joe centric. I think is pretty much the things that we settled on to talk about, because we tried to we tried to talk about a lot of things, and we realized that like G.I. Joe and MOTU were kind of the main things that we played with and we knew a lot about. And so we surprise. And so so we did the show. We had like a weekly episode, and then we would maybe drop another recorded video in the week. But so we did that for about a year, and then Larry didn't have a ton of time to dedicate to the channel anymore, and so we kind of parted ways amicably, and that was that. And I think
actually before you move on past that, let me just say, I don't think I ever told you this, but you and others, but you definitely inspired me in two ways. Number one, so your Star's kind of joking still a little bit. He's like, stop it, you're gonna make me buy this stuff, it burns, right? So in many ways, you were the enabler for me to pay attention, particularly to Masters of the Universe again, and especially as the announcement of Origins. And then for me, it was like, there's a new show coming, and I was like hearing you guys talk about it, and then Revelation. And I've told you this before, there was these things that you were doing where you were sort of speculating on which characters would be coming. And then as it sort of evolved, you'd start showing some customs that to kind of like visualize what was possible. And that totally like opened up my eyes, because I was paying attention to definitely like customs, particularly Mythic Legion stuff. But then it was like, oh yeah, duh, of course there's going to be customs MOTU stuff. And you introduced me to like Mendoza and a bunch of other folks. So I love that. And then sort of seeing you do your YouTube thing is like, man, this is cool. Let's do this. I love it. And so I'm just going to say, like, there's a lineage just like from Matt Mason, right, and Big Jim to He-Man, Masters of the Universe. There was Toy Habits to Brick Something. So
nice.
So yeah, and it was really cool to be able to meet you. And when I found out you were in the Bay, like I was like, wait, you went to the Alameda Toy Show? Like, I'm here.
I know.
So
right?
So cool. Awesome. You did that. You did this, and then it sort of evolved beyond the YouTube too, right?
Yeah. So actually, if I back up a little bit too, I think like 9 months into this thing, I was I think Larry and I were talking about the MOTU Classics figure Hero, right? And so I think in one of our speculation videos or something, we were talking about the gem that the MOTU Classics figure came with. They had 3 of them, 3 colors, and the Toy Sorceress wrote a comment in the chat and said, I want the green gem. Can you trade me? And so I had it. And so I wrote her back, and we traded those staffs with I think I got her red gem, if I'm not mistaken. But
yeah,
that's
heard
really
this story before. I love it.
Really how we met was through YouTube. And so we started exchanging texts, and I just found her just, really engaging. She would actually start to send like toy news our way too. And so I think about 6 months before Larry was not part of the show anymore, like she's been basically working like a mad woman behind the scenes. She would text me news. We would turn that news into videos. And then my wife was like, why don't you start a website? It's like, it never occurred to me. She's had a website for a very long time. And so I'm like, okay. And I've had websites, and actually the reason why I love bringing customs into the mix, especially with kind of the new figures and the speculation, is because I used to run a website called Action Figure Customs. It was, I think I ran it from like 2007 to 2016 maybe, and then I just shut it down because I just didn't have enough time to dedicate it to it. But
gotcha.
So like customs has always been like kind of near and dear to my heart, because I can't do them and I don't have the talent for them, but I can appreciate other people's talent and I like to showcase them. So basically the whole website was featuring a lot of the talent that was making customs in that and in those years. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So then you do develop a site.
Yes. Yeah. So so the Toy Sorceress came on, and I kind of brought her on to really help flesh out a lot of the things that are going to be time consuming. Like, it's very time consuming to get a website going, and especially from scratch, and especially now where there's a whole lot of other sites out there that do similar things. But I think we put our heads together and kind of formed a site that was a little bit different, right? It was basically, we spend a lot of our off time off of YouTube and off the site just looking for things to surface for collectors, and because that's something that we normally do and have fun with. So we're like, why don't we just make collecting easier for people? And so that's where Toy Habits, the website, came about, because we can get the news out faster than we can with YouTube. Because if you have not tried to cut a video or do any type of video production, it takes a long time. There's many hours that go into a 15-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute thing, right? If it's not a live stream, but still you have to prep, right, for these live streams and all of your content. So it was basically a complementary thing to the YouTube channel. And, we would, fabulous idea that the Toy Sorcerers had was to create these shopping pages too. And so it's kind of like a checklist, but if you go on to the shop pages, we've basically done all the work for you. You don't have to hunt and search for all of these things. They're just right there for you with a few places to buy them from. So
yeah, like, I'm sorry, it's gonna be a little weird, because again, we were using our shots today, our photos, so I have screenshots here. I wish I could show folks that, but this is your call, folks. Go to toyhabits.com and you'll see that there are all sorts of resources, like you said, like that will catalog the different characters, or in addition to all the sort of like news about like, hey, here's the barcode for this, here's a DCPI for this, and here's the link, right? Like you and I were talking yesterday about how silly it is at Amazon. Like sometimes like you just can't find a thing and you have to do some deep digging. And then you guys do the deep digging and sort of say, hey, here's the link, go buy.
Yeah, because like Masters of the Universe dropped like their whole fall, spring, and summer lineup, minus the cartoon collection Man at Arms. And we're like, where the heck is he? Everybody was DMing me on Instagram, like, where can I find this thing? And so we basically reverse looked him up on Amazon, because that's some of the search wizardry that we do for everyone. We found him and people were able to pre-order him. I think he's temporarily out of stock right now, but I think the only way that you can find him is either through our website or if somebody had sent it to you. Because if you do a search for him, he's not there.
So frustrating. So go to toyhabits.com. You can get all this info. There's really a lot of really cool resources categorized at the sort of top. You can't even see the top right now.
Yeah.
But
the other thing that I want to mention too about the Toy Sorceress is, I guess from my prior involvement with Toy Habits, like, she opened my eyes to so many other toy lines. Like, she's responsible for my vintage Thundercats collection that I have right now, the Super 7 Thundercats collection, and the Cat's Lair that's coming.
Love that.
She got me back into Star Wars again, because they were you know, they're putting out those little retro Star Wars, you know, figures that look like the old figures from the 70s and some, you know, late 70s and early 80s. And yeah, so it's like I love that aspect, and she works so hard and is so dedicated, and she's so knowledgeable about a lot of things. Like I have deep knowledge on a few properties, but she has the breadth of knowledge, and I think we complement each other really, really well.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, and you guys work so well as a team. Totally all her fault, the enabling. And yeah, I mean, just, you know, but Bud's here and he's saying whenever I open up my Chrome on my PC, the first tab opens the Toy Habits, right? I visit it every day. It's my go-to for fast update for toy news. And yes, shilling. It's only shilling if they pay you. So you guys can cut them a check later. Yeah, no, and Toy Sorceress echoes it, man. You guys work really well together, and I love that. You guys say that a lot, and I actually, it's beautiful. It's humanizing. It's endearing, and gratitude is important for all you Canadians celebrating Thanksgiving today.
Right, Thanksgiving.
But
she's amazing, and it's like we not only like it's a true 50-50 partnership with her, and we do things for each other. Like I knew I was going to be gone, and you know, the card art drops for He-Man the day before, and now it's Saturday, right? It was yesterday with the toy show, and I was like, you know what? I bet the card art for Beast Man is going to drop too, and so I started a post or an and said, hey, when this comes out, like I've started this, could you finish it? And she's happy to do it. It's like how the sausage is made on Toy Habits. A lot of,
and we don't need to go into the details of it, but I just want to, like, some of the, you know, you were talking about this, the mace details, like the Photoshop work, the turning this blue, from the color shifting from the green to the blue. It's like, that's really fun stuff that is actually really, it's great. Like it just adds so much more to this sort of hobby. And like I'm a visual person, like I love having visuals. Like we could have just talked about this whole thing, and I know that that's a thing on the internet, but for me it's like I want to see it. And so the fact that you will take the time, again, like with when you guys are speculating, show us some customs, and like I appreciate it, and I love what you all do.
Oh, thanks.
Visuals, I got to learn a little bit more about Michael yesterday, and I had no idea about like sort of your background. And so I know there's one particular type of sort of visuals that you were getting into, and that's sort of what's going on here. Let's talk about Michael for a second, and Michael's other sort of interests and hobbies.
Yeah, so in addition to toys, I fell in love with I don't know if you can call it a hobby, but it's deep space astrophotography. And I was always into space, but I never really took it like seriously, or just kind of dove headfirst into it. And for some reason in 2012, I was down at my parents' house in Rancho Mirage, and it's the desert, right? And so it's like their house doesn't have a ton of street lights around, and so there was a full moon out, and
light pollution.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
And my wife's a decorator, and so she brought her camera down there. So I just grabbed her DSLR, took a picture of the moon, and was like, it came out okay, right? It came out pretty good for an Earth-based camera. And then I thought to myself, I was like, what else is out there? And so I started Googling like how to get images of deep space. And that's basically how kind of what got me into the hobby. And
this was the original shot, right?
Yeah, that is the original shot. And then that is my first ever, it was a 30-second exposure. And you can kind of see like the stars are kind of football shaped and things like that. I didn't have the equipment to track the stars and, you know, make them round. I was just really amazed that from my backyard, I could point a DSLR to the sky and see something that resembles a nebula. It's like a star forming creation, or a star forming region, right, in space.
Yeah.
And so that was basically my start in 2012. If you flash forward to 2013, is that image below it, I started to really kind of hone my skills with basically bringing out all the detail that's out in space. And so space is filled with hydrogen gas. So this is the hydrogen, structures that are in gas, and they're actively forming stars. So, yeah. And
That's
then
awesome.
if you go to the one beside it, this is pretty much, I had to hang up my astrophotography career just because I had a life event in 2016 and I could not stay up till 3 a.m. and get a few hours of sleep every night. But this is kind of where I was kind of in a groove of just, honing my skills with taking data that's in space, turning it into something that looks like this, and just kind of bringing it to life.
It's gorgeous. Do you see things in this one?
Like, just like when you look at a cloud or something, you can see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, I'll be specific. Do you see the Skeletor or the skull?
How funny. You know what? Now that you mention it, I totally do. Then wow. Okay. So this is
the eyes and the nose.
I've never seen that before. And this is what's great about this is what's great about just getting another set of eyes, another input on this. This nebula is called the Rosette Nebula because it looks like a budding rose, right? But
okay.
I cannot unsee what you just said right now. I see the eyes, I see the nose. Oh my God, that's nuts. I love this even more, and I did not even plan on having this in here for that reason. That's awesome.
This was your transition. It was like, you got to stop with the astrophotography. You need to go buy a Skeletor and many versions of Skeletor and talk about it on the internet. Go.
Yeah. So
this is from that era too?
Yeah. So this is the Pinwheel Galaxy. I think it's 51 million light years away. A light year is it's a little less than 6 trillion miles.
Amazing.
So if you want to do the math, like I would often ponder the existence of life when I was doing this, because you feel so small, just knowing what else is out there. So.
Where's Eternia?
I have not found that yet.
This is fantastic, man. I loved hearing you talk about this yesterday. I was just like, oh, that is so cool. In addition to a story that we can save for another day, which is that I may have interacted with your partner, your wife, at some point in our past career, but we'll save that for later.
Yeah.
So then I love that. I love that. And so you were going on and on about this stuff because I had no idea. But once you started talking about it, I was like, oh, of course, that makes sense. how it would work. And so I love learning things. And this was really fascinating. I think I've seen rigs like this, like they'll show but I never sort of understood what was happening.
Yeah.
And until you sort of talked a little bit about, can you give us the layperson's version of what's going on with this equipment?
Of course. Yes. So I had 2 imaging telescopes when I was doing this. And one of them is for deep field. It's a big telescope. It's meant to get close up in those structures. So that Rosette Nebula had a bunch of structures in it, which you were pointing out. You're like, oh, here's Skeletor's eyes, there's her nose, whatever. That can get really close. That white telescope was for a wide field of view. So that basically that is the white telescope that captured that big Rosette Nebula. And I think Ray was asking, is there really a nebula like that? Yeah, astronomers are not good at naming things, and they name things pretty much what they saw in them. So I guess there was not a toy designer who named the nebula. He would have named it Skeletor, I'm sure. But there's basically 3 important parts that go into imaging, and I want to play a little game with you and the people that are watching. So I have a question. What is the most important piece of equipment that you have to invest in, basically spend the most money on for astrophotography? Is it the mount? And the mount is that tripod looking thing with a motor and gears, and that's the thing that's the telescope sits on, right? There's the telescope itself, and then there's the camera that is coming off of the telescope. So what would you guess would be the most important thing of those 3 here?
The rig versus the telescope, and what's the third option?
The camera.
The camera.
Yeah. So the camera, the mount, or the actual telescope?
Anybody in the chat?
Yeah, there's
Someone
one. We got Nolan
saying
saying
telescope. You see the telescope itself. I'm wondering if it's the camera, because I can't imagine it's a regular camera that sort of exists, but that's my guess. Other people are saying the telescope. So far I'm 2-0. But what about the computer to organize everything?
Oh,
Because
the one
there's
that's the laptop
data
sitting
coming
here?
in. Yeah. Eric's with me on the camera. You and me, Eric, and Allison as well. Camera and probably specific to the lens. Okay, so maybe the lens in particular.
Yeah, well, the lens is basically the telescope.
Is the
right?
telescope? The telescope's the lens. Yeah, because I just imagine the sensor.
The camera is not a camera. It's not an Earth style camera that you're used to. It's basically a chip that collects photons, and that's all it is. Right. But no, you're actually all wrong.
We're wrong.
It's the mount. It's the mount.
Oh.
And I made that mistake too. I thought, oh, it has to be the telescope or the camera. But if you don't have the money invested in a good mount, and the mount is what actually tracks all of the field and all of it basically makes astrophotography possible. Like you can do 30-minute exposures on one thing because it's basically getting coordinates from space, feeding it back into this motorized mount, and it's telling it how to move with the rotation of the Earth.
I forgot that the mount was motorized because it's syncing the movement. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a very spendy hobby, and basically you're not shelling out all this money at once because you're buying equipment, piecemeal and trying things out. And I think, it's about like this rig here is probably about $10,000 worth of equipment, and I bought it all secondhand. I never buy astrophotography equipment new because it is so freaking expensive. So like basically what happens in astrophotography is, there's a secondary camera that's in a lot of these, we call them like normal, like the cameras that actually gather the photons and the data. And its main purpose is to track a star in that area that you're shooting, and it feeds. Yeah, so basically that telescope that's piggybacked on that white one is just a tracking telescope. It has one star, and it is following that star. It's feeding the coordinates into the mount. It knows where to go, and that's where you can get the long exposures. And astrophotography is a very noisy hobby. Like you take one image, like one 25-minute sub exposure, it looks very messy, but the technique.
Oh, you're talking visual noise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay,
so it's like it looks very it looks like the structure, but it's very pixelated. It's very noisy. I don't really know how else to say it. In astrophotography, you have to take multiple hours of data. So you take 30-minute exposures or 10-minute exposures, and by the end of the night, you have maybe 20-25 sub exposures that you then have to reconcile all together into one image. And there you go. The reconciling and like doing that part is a whole different art.
So it's a composite picture. It's taking all of these photos and sort of like determining how do we put this together into a single image. So even then, it's not a true representation of sort of like it. So now this is my art brain going like, this is not a pipe. It's not actually a picture of the thing in essence, because you're collecting it and putting it together. But this is humans' way of being able to see this and render it, because that's what we have available to us. So, and you end up with this stuff.
Yeah. So actually, here, zoom out for a bit, because I want to see, like I told you, astronomers weren't very good with names, and they just kind of name the things how they saw them.
Sure. Is this the pelvis? The pelvis bone nebula, or the Snow Owl Nebula? No, I don't know. Heart, maybe?
Yeah, you're exactly right. This is the Heart Nebula. I actually send this out. I post this every Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's cool.
Basically space wishing everyone a happy Valentine's Day. So there's two things going on here. This is it's a representation of that white telescope. So the white telescope was able to capture that whole entire nebula, and it's huge. Like we're talking
this one.
Yes.
That.
A lot of miles, in trillions and trillions and trillions of miles long. And then the other larger telescope is to basically there's no zoom in or zoom out with astrophotography. You just get the field of view, and that's the one that you're stuck with. So this structure called MOTU 15, the one in, that looks kind of brown and has some greens to it. That's at the center.
This is the Gandalf fighting the Balrog Nebula.
There is a wizard nebula too
Oh, is it really?
No, there is one. There is
nebula,
but there is a wizard nebula.
Okay.
But anyway, this is it's basically showing that kind of a couple things here. The Heart Nebula. So the reason why the human eyes can't really detect color in space because it activates our colorblind rods in our eyes, but a camera is much more sensitive. So in real life, this nebula is red, but we can't see it. And the camera is able to capture all that data and render it in a way. I don't know if you've ever heard the term Hubble Space Telescope. So there's the Hubble Space Telescope, but there's also the Hubble Space Telescope color palette. And you have to basically assign red, green, and blue, RGB, right, to make color in the narrowband imaging sense. So a narrowband image is basically, it's the hydrogen, sulfur dioxide, and ionized oxygen wavelengths that are in the sky. And you use this to basically show off a lot of the structures and the detail that are hidden in just a plain color image. So it's also called false color too, because the structures don't look yellow and brown and green, stuff like that. They look red. So.
I mean, it's like, and even in so anyways, yes, for normal human vision, for example, that's not the way that all beings sort of see things. So it depends on what we can see. And so I guess what you're saying is the camera has to sort of find a way to translate that into something that we can recognize visually.
I remember at work, like we were able, like we could share just whatever from our lives. And I think like the camera can see, I forget if it's like 100,000 or 10,000 eyeballs worth of stuff in one image where, we just have our two eyes to look at stuff.
Sure. Whew. The 7-year-old in me keeps wanting to ask you if you've seen any alien ships out there while doing this, and what kind of ship. So here's the thing, because of the tracking, right? There could have been ships, but they were moving so fast that they weren't caught in the exposure. So
actually, I've gotten meteors show up in my images. Sometimes.
Very
they
cool.
Just happen
and you
to
get trails.
Yep. Yeah. So even if it's something that is moving as fast as a meteor can mess up a picture, I'm sure that the aliens out there do. No, I saw a lot of satellites though. I kind of would lay down on the concrete and just look up, and you would just kind of see satellites going around. And astrophotography is very boring, but it's really the output and the data collection and the processing of the images that make it so rewarding.
I mean, it's boring, right? I don't know how you say it, but we're sitting here listening. A lot of us are fascinated.
No, I know, but like actually doing it, you're basically there for 4 hours, 5 hours at a time, just collecting the images of the same thing. But it's it's the end product that is the most rewarding, I think.
Yeah.
And
so when you said
getting there too.
Oh, totally. And when you said these are not from the same image. You're just showing where the location is, but this is a separate image, right?
Yeah. So that was taken with that bigger telescope.
That's
so
what I
that
thought.
deep
This is the
field
narrow
telescope.
band.
Yeah.
Got it. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, yeah. I spoiled the names, but yeah, this is so wonderful. Wait, these are two images put together.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. They're not. Okay. They're not side by side. Yeah. They don't live in close proximity to each other.
So this is the Skeletor Nebula.
I know that. Like I cannot unsee that now. That's so awesome. Yeah. This one's called the Pac-Man Nebula, and I think if you zoom out a little bit, I didn't keep it. that was basically the field that I had. And I guess somebody looked at that and said it looked like Pac-Man, I guess.
Right
But
here, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I see Fortune Cookie Nebula.
I know.
I see Embryo Nebula, maybe, or like a bird.
Yeah, actually, if you zoom into that one, so there's that really dark part of, so those are the technical term for that dark dust is called a Bach globule. And basically
I thought it was called a Nazgul, but okay.
I know, right? It's in these nebula, they're forming stars, and the way that stars form is all of this space dust. I think it's called accretion, when they start like spinning around and basically gravity takes over, and at some point this pile of dust becomes a ball of something. It's kind of like how the Earth, like how all the planets became round, right?
Yeah.
It's that process of accretion, I think is the term for it. But I mean, these are structures that are out there right now. And the funny thing is, some of these structures could be gone, like totally gone, but we won't see that for a while because of the distance that light travels and hits the Earth. There's a very famous nebula called the Eagle Nebula, and we can still image it today. It's actually destroyed and gone, and we'll see that result of that in about 6,000 years.
Ooh, how many thousands of years ago was it in existence?
I think it was in existence about 5,000 and something years ago, and there was a supernova that basically a star exploded behind it and obliterated it. But the time that so this is the weird part of doing this, the time that it takes the light to reach Earth is going to be about 6,000 years. And so we'll see that destruction and the aftermath in about 6,000 years. But now it looks like a nice nebula. That's untouched. So
wow.
It's kind of the weird stuff that just kind of plays with your head when you do this hobby.
No, it's great stuff. And, ultimately, this is the stuff that sort of inspired a lot of the things that you and I continue to love, right? We mentioned sort of Master's Universe Eternia coming from Matt Mason, going into space. Like literally you're telling me that this thing, like we're seeing it now, but this thing died a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Exactly.
And
right. It doesn't look like this anymore, but to us, it does.
All right. Well, thank you for hanging out today and sharing all that. Like folks were like, yeah, so stinking cool. Like people, I don't know if you saw earlier, I kind of like threw it up, but people like had no idea. People were like, wow, that's interesting. Today we're on Brick on Science. And I was like, no, Michael on Science. Yeah, people are loving it, man. And I love these opportunities. I loved hanging out with you, and that was my opportunity to hear this. And I'm like, hey, I hit you up to say, can we talk about that at the end? Like, I'm sure, yeah, let's talk about toy habits and how you started. Great. But tell me about that other thing, right? So Ray's like, yeah, I never thought that you were into that. So it's great. And all of this, kids, is what sort of inspires a lot of like the creatives later who take these ideas and sort of get like inspired to give us the cool things, right?
Yes. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. And like I love talking about toys. I obviously love talking about space. I could talk about this for like weeks.
Yeah.
It was a fun part of my life, and if I ever get back into it, I will not be in California because I really want to get a nice piece of land that is very dark, and I want to build like a 10-foot like little remote observatory. And like with the technology now, you can program everything to wake up the whole rig and the camera. You can program what it's going to collect. It'll collect it for you overnight, so you don't have to watch it for 5 or 6 hours. You basically go to bed and all the data's there for you in the morning. So if I ever get back into it, that's what I want to do.
That's so awesome. And I think like, eventually you also have the observatory, and then you'll have the toy gallery on the other side, the YouTube studio. Anyway, dare to dream. Thank you so much, Michael. Yeah. I know you've got other things going on tonight. You want to tell folks what's going on over in Toy Habits?
Yeah, so we're going live for our live stream at 7 o'clock Pacific time. It's not a usual time that we go live, but it's hard just trying to line all of the stuff up on the weekends.
Yeah.
And I was playing with you and Kayla yesterday, and that was fun. That was a great time. So I think we usually do the streams earlier, but I mean, 90% of the time we're just trying to dig up and just cranking out news on toyhabits.com. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, you guys are doing the real news. Thank you for coming over here for the BS news, where we just BS with friends and talk about cool things we saw and maybe learn a little bit about astrophotography. I had my little Mr. Wizard moment, Nickelodeon reference for those of you today. So that was awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I hope we get to connect again soon.
We're so close together.
Yeah, we'll figure out other ways. Like if you're ever here for work, like hit me up. Let's go Super 7. If I can, shoot over from school, hop, skip, and a jump to the mission, and we'll figure it out. Awesome. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much to everybody in the chat. Thank you to everyone watching this on replay. We ran a little bit longer, so I got to get going so that Michael can get ready for his next show. There's a lot of great things happening. 7 o'clock over on Toy Habits. You can check that out. Until then, you might watch a little Hella Dope on their channel, Hella Dope Toys. You could watch, who else has got going on? GDL, Just Shelve It, all sorts of great stuff. So
yeah, we have Oz as a special guest tonight too. So.
Ostradamus Toys making his debut today on Toy Habits. So awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, folks, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again next week, 4:30 p.m. Here on the Brick Something channel. And yeah, have a great week, everybody. Thank you so much. Hope you had fun with Michael and I, and see you next time. Peace. Bye-bye.